Hi Joanne, how are you?
Hey Gordon, how you doing?
I'm very well. I think okay. I was called a lockdown lover the other day though, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether that's a good thing. A lockdown lover. Oh, it's a
I
bit
never
mental,
heard that
isn't
one
it? At the
before.
moment, it's a bit
Yeah,
mental, isn't it?
uh, it's a lot mental. Yeah.
Now, I know you from your podcast around the Empire. Um,
hmm
and you've asked me on a couple of times, and we've chatted. And every time we sort of talk to each other and say, "Can you believe it's this
Yeah,
nuts? It's not going to get any worse, is it? It can't get any worse." And I think the last time I spoke to you was in January. So here
it's
we are.
gotten a lot worse. It
Now
did.
I want to talk to you about your podcast around the Empire. When did you? It's about 3 years ago. You say you started it. Where
Yeah, in
2017.
December of 2016, actually.
So you started it after the whole
Yeah.
2016 election debacle.
Yeah, Dan and I were talking about doing it. We had been doing um,
So who and you?
Dan Wright uh,
Okay.
founded the podcast with me. He still comes on sometimes, but his, life has changed and he can't do it all the time anymore.
Okay.
So we really started talking in 2014. That's when we started to get to know each other. I guess we kind of knew each other a little bit before that because he used to do the news roundup for Fire Dog Lake,
Right.
and we were both sort of very dug into the progressive blogging community, and so was I, and I was active at, like, I don't even like to mention the name of the stupid website, Daily Coast. But
The Daily
yeah,
Dose. Okay.
although it was good training for the kind of abuse that people on the left get to, trying to coerce people to conform.
Yeah.
So I had good, I actually was pretty well prepared for what was coming in the later years. But that site just went off the rails, particularly during the 2016 primary. They started banning people from, like, even writing or supporting Bernie Sanders or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't been there in years, so I don't really even know what's going on there. But uh, Fire Dog Lake used to publish some of my stuff sometimes. And, I used to read their roundup every day, so I knew who Dan was. And then in 2014, we both had a common interest in what was going on in Ukraine. Neither of us knew what the heck, we didn't know much about Ukraine. We didn't know even that much about Russia, really,
Hmm.
current Russia. And there were a few other people, like this guy named Bill Mon, who was a pretty prominent blogger, and some other people. And we started to find some people who spoke English and talked about what's going on in Ukraine.
When you say what was going on in Ukraine, what was back then? Obviously, we know what's going on recently, but back then, what was going on? Were the seeds sort of put in motion back then as to the sort of the
Yeah, it was
the
actually
environment
blowing
we've
up.
got now with Biden and all his corruption? Well, I say Biden and all his, it's the Democrats and all their corruption, isn't it?
Yeah, that's when it all started. In late 2013, there was Color Revolution attempted. It wasn't the first one, but I hadn't known about the first one. And the Euromaidan started, and remember the flaming barricades and everyone in the square.
Yeah.
And they're trying to overthrow Yanukovych,
Hmm.
and these militias formed, and it was these online news channels popped up, and they were doing, like, live streams of the whole thing, so you could really watch everything all happening in real
Hmm.
time. And both of us tended to, like, our knee jerk, our default position would have been to support those protesters, right?
Yeah.
Support the common people, because it did start out where there were just a lot of common people out on the square trying to improve their lives.
Now we're talking about Ukraine here and not Yemen or
We
any of the
are,
other Arab
yeah,
Spring. You see
right.
my
But
point. You see my point. This is something that it's a regularity, isn't it? It wasn't just Ukraine. It happened. This is something that was repeated. A process that was repeated between sort of
oh yeah,
2010 and 2014 in all these Arab nations as well, wasn't it?
yeah. We were not really wise to this yet.
No,
I certainly wasn't, and I tended to, be on the side of the protesters and
me
support
too.
them. But things started to get kind of strange, and we saw if you were really watching, which we were, you would see signs of Nazi symbolism. This one time at this event, like they started raising this Confederate flag, and we're like, what's going on here?
In Ukraine?
In Ukraine, yeah. In Kiev, yeah.
I wonder where they're getting the ideas for that from.
That's a whole nother long story about the Nazi
So
militias.
you start seeing the Nazism, symbolism, etc. when you're watching. This is what, 2014? You say 2013.
Yeah. So it started to blow up in late 2013, really late, like November, December. By January, it was a full-blown insurgency, and by February, I think it was February, when Yanukovych had fled the country.
Now, remind me, is that the guy who had the galleon in his back garden and the press fixated on that? It was a galleon and a zoo, I think he had.
Yeah.
This is no different to pretty much any leader of any nation. I mean, Nancy Pelosi is worth $100 million. I mean, she could have her own zoo if she wanted. Sorry, carry on.
No, I mean, Princeton did a study and determined that we're really not a democracy. We're an oligarchy. So,
around the same time, that was 2013, I think it was. That study. Yeah. And here we are 7 years later, Joanne, and they're still screaming, our democracy is at stake.
Freedom and democracy. Freedom and democracy.
We'll talk about it. Sorry, carry on.
Our values, our norms, the international norms, yeah. And a lot of people still buying it, right? So
less and less, I think. I think less and less.
Yeah, I think skepticism has moved into the realm, but there are still plenty of true believers or people who they don't want to think about it. It's just like, nah, Trump is bad. Let's bring in Biden. There's a very large group of people who do that, and blue no matter who and all that. Misinformed,
you see, it's misinformation. This is what happened. So it was Ukraine sort of that got you interested, I suppose, in is that true, right? It was what were the happenings of Ukraine that got you interested in sort of like what the empire was doing around the world?
Yeah, that is what I had already started questioning things after 9/11. I was a NPR, BBC, Bloomberg News. I got my half hour of each of those every day, and my long commutes back and forth. And I had a full-time stressful job, and I was having babies and raising 3 little kids. And but I still wanted to stay informed, and I thought I was, because I dedicated that amount of my free time.
You were informed, all right, Joanne. You were just misinformed.
I was.
The same as we all are, if we're listening to that.
I became disillusioned. I'm getting off track a little bit here, but hopefully I'll remember to
bring
it back.
I'm a bugger for it. It's my fault. I just go off wherever I feel. So you started 2000. It was Ukraine that sort of got you aware, and it was 2017. You started around the empire. Sort of, what did you see in between?
I would say that the thing that actually really set me off to looking at things differently, as I said, I started to question things after 9/11 and the Iraq War, like a lot of people, but it was Libya that really, I'm not radicalized, but I started to see that we're not the good guys.
It's that realization, is it? That I think there's a meme of a guy called David. He was one of the guys from Peep Show, and there's a meme of him in a Nazi uniform, and he's like, "We're the bad guys." And it's that slow realization. Oh shit! Yeah, we are the people who have been doing this around the world. And you mentioned Libya there. What we did to Libya was terrible, wasn't it?
I was.
And I say we did it with you. The UK
you guys
always
were
there alongside our American friends.
Britain and France were all in. I would say they were pushing for it even more than us at that point. But that's kind of neither here nor there. I mean, it's a coalition, right? the American empire is complicated. It's really
Yeah.
not just the American empire. It's more like the NATO empire or something like
Yeah,
that.
I kind of look at France and Macron. He looks at Africa as if like that's on our doorstep. Africa,
Yes.
it's just across, it's just down there. Look at all those resources we can get our hands on. And he's got a bit of a Napoleon complex with him, if you ask me. And he's always talking about branching out and resources. And they have got their eye on Africa. Africa is the next place that they're going to try and satellite, apart from the Middle East and the South America, by the look of it. What did they do in Libya? Just explain it to people, just in case they don't know, Joanne.
Well, I guess we can just do the basics
The highlights.
of it.
It was
Yeah.
the richest country in Africa.
It was. They still had a higher quality of life than other countries in Africa.
Americans, listen to this. Libya had healthcare.
They had healthcare. They had a lot of things. Like if you wanted to, when you were getting started, if you were, a young 20-something or something, I believe education was free as well.
Yeah.
And they would even help you like get started with your first apartment or your first house, or if you wanted to start a business. Things like that are unheard of here, kind of. But Gaddafi had been shaken for a couple of decades, and he had started to cooperate. Certainly in the war on terror, he had started to cooperate. But there were some things going on. There's some documents that Brad Hoff had done some work on back then about, they were concerned about his Pan-African goals. He wanted Africa to have its own currency. He wanted more fair trade deals and things like that. And he was organizing, he was working on that. He had, I know there were some Chinese companies that were working in the oil industry there. But all along he was, particularly I think with Britain, he was keeping sort of close ties. Was it Tony Blair that he was actually
would have been
talking?
back then, yeah. It would have been, Tony Blair would have been the 90s, and then up to 2006, was it? Tony Blair left 2007, then Gordon Brown was in for about a year, and then Cameron took over at 2008, 2010. So it would have been Cameron around the time that Libya was toppled. I mean, he was begging Parliament over here to go to war, and they all said no, but we went anyway.
Thank God for
we
that.
just did it under the radar and
but
put
I think
together
that
our
Blair
propaganda.
I think Blair kept in touch with him, and I think Gaddafi reached out to, try to calm this thing down. But they were concerned about a number of things. I mean, Macron was even concerned about countries that are francophone, and he didn't want to stop speaking the French language. There's probably a lot more behind that, and that leads to money. But so basically, we backed some quote unquote rebels, militias, and
freedom fighters.
Yeah, it was a big operation to overthrow him. Those guys turned out to be, jihadis,
terrorists. That's who we call them freedom fighters when we're paying them, and then when they're on the other side, we call them terrorists. That's the way it works.
Right. And it wasn't so obvious then. That became very, very obvious in Syria, which was a game changer too. But
back then it was, it wasn't until years later that it comes out that he was about to launch this, or he was talking about launching this golden dinar, which is what you said he was talking about an African currency. And obviously coming off the dollar is something that America don't want anybody to do. Iran did it, and they get sanctions and regime change attempted. Venezuela did it, and you got the same thing again. It's a pattern, isn't it?
Yeah. So there were a number of things that were factors. You had Britain and France really pushing for this intervention. It was framed as a humanitarian intervention. And at the time, Hillary Clinton wanted to be president, and she wanted sort of a notch in her belt. And she had a number of other very hawkish, extremely hawkish people in his cabinet who were teaming up with Hillary Clinton, like Samantha Power, like Susan Rice. And this was, I would say, the peak of the R2P philosophy, which is responsibility to protect.
Right.
Because you can't get things past the UN Security Council unless you can say this is like a real threat to us. You're just not allowed to wage war. And most of the time people do want the nod from the UN before they go and do things, because it can cause you some trouble in international law if you don't do that. So they, came up with this new, and they tried to actually make an official policy in the UN. I don't think they ever succeeded in doing it. The R2P, the responsibility to protect. So kind of like the infamous Kuwait, the daughter of I don't know, a prominent
Yeah, she was
Kuwaiti.
also of a Kuwaiti ambassador, I think it was, or ambassador or cousin to the royal family.
So the babies in incubators thing, right?
So baby line, it was a complete lie. She was an actress.
So they launched another sort of propaganda campaign like that by saying that the people in eastern Libya were in grave danger because Gaddafi was going to slaughter them. And so we needed to, go in and cut him down to size a little bit. Obama promised that it was not a regime change operation when it really was. And so it's just for me personally, I happened to be in North Carolina at that time near a really big Marine base. And there were, during that week, and there were, it's not uncommon to see fighter jets, Marine helicopters, a lot of exercises going up and down the beach. But there was just a really lot of activity. And I thought, I wonder what is going on. And then boom, on March 19th, our date, which is the anniversary of the invasion of Iraq.
Right.
They launched the war in Libya. And for some reason, that detail just really pissed me off. I was furious. I could barely contain myself.
Yeah, over here it was framed that it was all freedom fighters and we were just hands off, or we were just giving them support and logistics. But it really was all them, and it was totally hands off, and we weren't involved in it at all, apart from giving them food and stuff like that. But that wasn't what it was like at all. We've seen this played out time and time and again over the last 10 years, haven't we? It was a coup.
Yeah. And so I was vehemently against it. And this is also when I started to break from the Democratic Party and the left. Because if you dissented, and some of my friends can tell you about this, the kind of pushback we got, the kind of trying to shut us up. Even some people who were normally very good on war and foreign policy, they were just all in on Libya. Some of them actually knew some of the, rebels in Libya, where, there were some honest to God people with good intentions, like always. But, this happens a lot in revolutions where the most radical, the most ruthless, well-armed, they overcome the rest of the resistance, if you will, and they end up running revolution. And I've realized that over time, like, those are the fighters we're kind of always looking for, because they're going to get the job done. And there was another thing that we really didn't find out much about until later, which was that there were stockpiles, crazy big stockpiles of arms in Libya. And the Clinton foreign policy cabal, if you will, I shouldn't use that word, but they were already planning to overthrow Assad in Syria.
Yeah.
And Cy Hirsch writes a lot about this, the rat line between Syria and Libya. And so what they did was they would get hold of these stockpiles of weapons in Libya, and there was a rat line bringing those weapons into Syria, I think through Turkey most of the time, in the Eastern Med there, and then down through Turkey and into Syria. And so that was part of a longer term plan.
Yeah, this is the 7 countries in 5 years Wesley Clark plan, isn't it? That's,
Yeah.
ends with Iran. All roads lead to Iran and regime change in Iran.
Yeah. So that's what Libya was about. I didn't get it, all of it, for, quite a while after that. But that's what sort of set me on this path. So when Ukraine happened, I was still inclined to, to side with the protesters, but my instincts just started telling me something was seriously wrong here. And I could not for the life of me understand why we would want to get involved. What's Ukraine to us? I mean, it's no Americans gave a damn
You
about
see,
what happened in Ukraine.
it seems to me that, Joanne, that what you are is something that the American establishment and the British establishment seems to have forgot is a thing, and that is a critical thinker. They have forgotten that there are people out there who think for themselves and think logically and think critically about things and aren't hypocritical. They actually have morals, and they will apply those moral standards to both sides of the coin. They've forgotten that that's ordinary people are actually like that. The majority of people are like that. We're just being led down the garden path by a load of shysters and liars and hypocrites who just want more war and more corporate profit. And that's what it seems to me. And obviously you've seen it there in Libya and Ukraine. And then after that, we've got the 2016 election. I mean, and did you start the podcast after the 2016 election because you just went, oh, I've had enough of this, I've got to get involved?
We had already been talking about it during the Ukraine war, which developed into a lot of other things, right? That's like a whole separate podcast episode. But Dan and I had been talking about it, and I was actually trying to talk him in. I was like, I love these podcasts. I can do, I can listen to them in the car, and I can pull weeds in the garden, and I can do what boring work. I could get, do it when I have to do boring work that I hate. So I was just getting into podcasts myself, and I was trying to talk him into it. And I had no idea how to get started or anything like that. And I wasn't in any rush. So it took probably at least a year till we actually did it. We had already, one of the big takeaways from Ukraine for me was there's somebody who wants to start another world war, which seems unthinkable. Or at the very least, they want a Cold War, and to, in some ways they want to get back to the glory days of the Cold War, where you don't actually have to fight, but you can you get better assignments in parts of Europe, cushy assignments and things like that, and travel the world, and that might help recruiting better. There's a whole bunch of reasons why the Cold War is great for the military.
Yeah.
But there were others who were way more than just opportunists. They were driven by something that was just very strong and very ruthless and very reckless, in my view.
People like, John Bolton here and Mike Pompeo and the very people who have been in power and are in power right now.
Yeah, the Russia hawks. But even people like Zbigniew Brzezinski, who I actually thought he had a pretty reasonable foreign policy view in the things I heard. I used to be an MSNBC watcher. Zbigniew Brzezinski, he was a Carter's national security advisor, and then he was like a god in the foreign policy establishment. And he, I don't know if he founded, but he was the key figure in the CSIS think tank that has tons of influence in Washington. And he'll be on Morning Joe all the time. Yeah. Well, because his daughter's the host too.
Oh, that's with Mika Brzezinski.
Yes, Mika's father.
I know who you mean now.
Yeah.
I know. When you said Brzezinski, I thought, yeah, that rings a bell. Yeah, I know who you mean. Morning Joe.
Yeah, if you see him, you'll know exactly who it is. And also, he kind of engineered the Mujahideen in Afghanistan in the late 70s and 80s.
The Mujahideens who Bin Laden.
Bin Laden.
Correct? So
Yeah,
they were funding Bin Laden in Afghanistan in the fight against, was it Russia back then?
Yeah.
So they funded him, and then they stopped funding him, and he's like, Allahu Akbar, I'm going to bomb America now. So now he's a terrorist.
Yeah.
We're
And he used
creating these monsters, aren't we?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And he used to brag about it for a long time. He even bragged. He walked this back after 2001, by the way. He tried to change his story a little bit, but he bragged. He basically said that he lured the Russians into Afghanistan, and then of course they were very proud of the, shoulder launched rockets shooting down the Russian helicopters. And then, one story about why the USSR fell is because of the quagmire in Afghanistan that they were in, and the Mujahideen resistance. And anyway, he used to brag about that quite a lot. There's footage of him preaching to the Mujahideen on the ground in Afghanistan, things like that. There's that's a story, the Charlie Wilson's War thing. That's one story. So later, when people, after 2001, and people said to him, well, hey, didn't you actually create Bin Laden? Maybe this 2001 is your fault. And he started back, no, I never said that. He changed his story. He also had a book that a lot of people, I haven't read it, and I really should. I think it's called The Grand Chessboard. I believe he published it in the 90s. And he actually, at the end of his life, kind of walked that back a little bit too. He's like, maybe this empire thing isn't going to work out so well. And he started talking about the axis of, Russia and China, and how we basically can't have both of them as enemies, and we're probably going to need to side with one of them against the other. But yeah, that didn't get much attention, but that's one of the last things he wrote in his life. But I'm getting a little sidetracked on Zbigniew because
it's okay. So
he's an interesting character. Where was I?
We were sort of like, so you got the election. I said, was it the election, the 2016 election, that made you just dive in?
Oh, I said that, yeah. So Dan and I were thinking about it, and we saw this new Cold War threat of even another world war. And to me, I just sort of had some thoughts like, well,
was there everybody sorry to cut you off. Was there any like one point that you can remember when you went, hold on a minute, now this is wrong? Was there any point? Because I know the reason I ask is, for me, there was a point where I went, oh shit, they're lying to me. And for my fiance as well, she said the same thing. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, how she was watching a news report on a Turkish channel, and they were talking about how Israel had bombed this place in Palestine, and it just killed this family. The entire family was wiped out, 10, 12 people, whatever it was. And then she thought nothing of it. And then about 2 weeks later, she saw a BBC report of a Palestinian, quote, terrorist who had gone to Israel and killed some soldiers and been killed himself. And the basic BBC were like, we don't know why he's doing this. It's just, and he came from the village that Palestine, that had been bombed the week before. And they never mentioned that in the BBC report. And that was the point from my fiance where she went, they're lying to us, the bastards. And for me, it was 2016, and it wasn't BBC, although they were, just as bad back then. It was actually CNN that, for me, it was. I can't remember the exact thing it was now. I think it was something to do with Russiagate, because they've lied so much about it. But they essentially reported something the opposite way the day after to what they reported it, because it fit their narrative better for them to do that. And that's when I realized, they're properly lying to us here. That's why Trump got elected, because they're lying to us. And the world isn't what I thought it was, and America isn't what I thought it was. And that, for me, was the awakening. Was there a point for you, or was it just gradually over time?
There were a number of them, but ironically, a speech that I saw from, it happened to be Zbigniew Brzezinski,
Right.
talking about, because at that time, in the mindset at that time in 2014 is a war with Russia was unheard of. That would be crazy. Nobody would ever want that, and nobody would ever do that.
The sensible thing to think.
Everybody, I mean, even the worst hawks were just easy. They were saying, "Oh no, we're not doing a war with Russia or whatever."
What is it? What is it that was it Isaac Newton or no? Einstein said that World War IV would be fought with sticks and stones. Well, if we're going to have a world war with Russia, then World War IV will be with sticks and stones, because there won't be anything left afterwards.
Nope. Yeah, and so it was just crazy. But he talked about how we should arm the citizens of Ukraine, and that they would fight on the streets. And he just talked about a bloody conflict with civilians.
Yeah.
And I thought, this guy is crazy.
He's pure.
And there are a number of people who, again, certain countries, like it's not just Russia, there are people who are crazy about, obsessed with other adversaries.
Can I ask you this? We've mentioned Ukraine a lot. None of this has anything to do with Ukraine, really, though, is it? Ukraine's just a pawn in this chess piece.
Yeah.
What's actually going on is Russia. That's the actual problem, isn't it? Because Ukraine is on a border with Russia. It's a former Soviet state, and we want to stick, more missiles on their border. That's what it comes down to, isn't it, Joanne?
Well, it's a lot of things. Ukraine was considered to be the prize. I forget whose quote it is, but they say, Ukraine is the prize. And without Ukraine, Russia cannot be a regional power. It cannot be an empire. So that's one of them. Ukraine has also a lot of potential. It's got a lot of fertile land. They've got highly educated people. Even though they've had a difficult life, there's still lots of engineers. There's metals. There's water, lots of water.
Right.
And it's you're right up on Russia's borders. And this is the kind of thing that Stephen Cohen used to yell about all the time. And I agreed with him 100% is, the last Cold War, guys, he was saying, our troops were hundreds of miles away in Berlin. Now they're right up on the border. So you can't have another, just reboot the Cold War here. Everything's totally changed. I'm kind of there's so many details, but so that, that was one of it. But the real key war at this point in time was Syria. Syria was the real objective.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. And the Ukraine war and the Syria war are kind of tangled, right? So when Russia started intervening in Syria, I think that is what, I think that accelerated, the operation against Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine is also,
and Venezuela, I would have thought as well.
Yeah.
They really, America really, and the UK, we've looked like complete fools with Venezuela, haven't we?
That's an old grudge and a constituency. There are still families who, owned land, let's say, in some South American countries. Mm-hmm. So when the pink tide happened, and some of the land was...
What's the pink tide?
That's the liberation movement. That's the Chavistas and the liberation movement.
Okay.
And so, land was distributed, resources were distributed, and some, wealthy landed families became exiles, and they still want their stuff back. And there's a very big constituency, generally in the Florida area, generally the anti-Cuba, faction. I don't know enough about them to say a lot about them, but yeah, there is some tit for tat going on though. And I do believe that Ukraine was a little bit of revenge or trying to, put some leverage on on Putin because, you know, when he seized Crimea, it was a great embarrassment and that happened, you know, very soon after Yanukovych had to flee.
What do you think all that was to do with, Joanne? Because was it all to do with that deep water port in the Black Sea? Because if I remember, the Black Sea is the mouth of the Mediterranean. Isn't that the only way they can get there? So it's like a closed port, and they haven't got a port to the Mediterranean or a deep water port to the Mediterranean in Russia. That's what it seemed like. Although the news didn't say that over here, that's what it seemed like to me. Was it like to you?
I think that was a big part of it. And when I say Putin seized Crimea, that's not really exactly accurate. Prevented,
Annexed?
yeah, and then help them become part of Russia.
The kind of, I don't know. I mean, I look at what Putin did over in Russia and I just think, yeah, bad boy. But then I look at what we do everywhere and I just think, well, what he did with Crimea was nothing compared to, I mean, just look at Israel, Palestine. I mean, it's nothing compared to what we're doing around the world. I mean, it's kind of like high pot, my name's Kettle, you're black, isn't it? When they're saying bad Putin for annexing Crimea, something that, I think, what was it, 60-70% Russians lived there anyway.
Yeah.
And it was a bone of contention as to whether, it was Russia's, etc. But
yeah, I mean, it was a Russian-speaking territory. I think the port was very important, but I think also the history of it. I think most Russians believe that it never should have become part of. It was sort of
that was the feeling.
Drunken fluke that it became part of Ukraine to begin with, and it didn't matter at that time because they were all the USSR. But now it matters a lot.
Yeah, and then as tensions ramp up from the West and the anti-Russia sentiment ramps up, it's almost like we're pushing them into doing it just as a retaliation to safeguard themselves. Because if they don't do that sort of thing, the West will run all over them, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, they knew.
Look at our track record to see that.
They wanted to prevent a NATO naval base from being so close to them and in such a strategic place. The people of that area, they were already semi-autonomous. They had their own like Congress or Parliament of sorts, and they were not happy with. I'm talking about the majority, like a really big majority. They really didn't like what happened in Kiev. The changeover of the seizure of the government, which there were a lot of illegal things about the way that was done, and became basically a puppet of the United States and Europe.
Yeah.
And Joe Biden was the viceroy in essence. And John Brennan was, heavily involved. So anyway, but I think it was also that over the last, I'm not too good with history, the far back history, but I mean, for at least over 100 years ago, I said they fought some really serious wars to keep, to defend Crimea. And so there's a lot of patriotic feeling of it, emotional.
Goes back a long way. The top military award you can get over here is the Victoria Cross. So it's sort of like our version of your Medal of Honor. And it was Queen Victoria that commissioned it. And it was the first medal that could be given to, the peasant and the serfs, rather, because up until that point, medals had always gone to, the upper class and the noblemen. And it was basically made almost impossible to get. You had to pretty much die to get given the Victoria Cross. And the Victoria Cross is it's made out of brass. And the medal that you get given is made out of one of the cannons from the Crimean War, hundreds of years ago when we fought the Russians in the Crimean War, and it's made out of a melted down cannon. So that's how far, this crap goes. It all goes back centuries, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we're building up our own history of tit for tat enemies and grudges and all that stuff, which is probably one of the things that was one of our biggest benefits, was that we didn't have that, as opposed to our friends in Europe who, you know, hate each other for like, I don't know, centuries old things.
So 2016 happens.
Yeah,
Did you vote 2016?
I did.
Did you vote
I
Green or did you go for the DNC? Did you bite the bullet?
I always no. I stopped doing lesser evil voting in 2012. Um, I had already gone to. I'd already become disillusioned in the 90s with the Clintons, but I
Yeah.
still defended them all through because what they were doing to the Clintons then is a lot like what's happening to Trump right now. Just crazy. It got crazy. Um, I was, you know, I was infuriated by what happened in 2000. I hated Bush. Uh, I became an anybody but Bush voter. And I got back into the Democrats again. I started thinking, all right, maybe this part, they look pretty good around 2006. And
Hope
I
and
was kind
change,
of
man. Hope and
all in.
change. We hope for more regime change. That's what he meant by hope and change, wasn't it?
In 2006, well, we supported a particular local congressman in Pennsylvania where my partner lives. And yeah, so we really kind of started getting back into it. And I was actually in Washington in a federal building at a party celebrating. It was Joe Sestak, his re-election, I guess. No, that was his first election to Congress. So we were in this really nice room with big windows so you could see the Capitol, and they had big TV screens around. We actually missed Bill Clinton. He showed up apparently to that because they were friends. But, you know, we liked Joe a lot at that time. I had my disagreements with him, but I still thought he was sort of a genuine, earnest person.
Mm-hmm.
And Nancy Pelosi was sworn in that day, and she was the first female Speaker of the House. I still thought she was a good person, and there wasn't a dry eye in the whole place. Everyone was in tears. It was such a big moment, including me. I was very emotional about it. I had a lot of hope. It was a beautiful day. It was a beautiful sunny day in January. And it was all downhill from there. I mean, I was still all in. I had my doubts about Obama, but, you know, I really wanted the first Black president too. Just like that was certainly part of my vote, although I wasn't part of the cult at all.
Yeah,
I got off the train.
I didn't realize how bad Obama was until I started doing this, until after he left office. I mean, I thought I was one of the people who was like, I wish we could have a prime minister over here who had the poise and the stature and was such a great, you know, gentleman as Barack Obama. And just, why can't we have a leader like that? And, you know, it's only now I realize, oh no, we had a leader like that. His name was Tony Blair.
Yeah, I guess there are a lot of similarities, aren't there?
Oh, totally. And, you know,
I used to think he was great, actually.
me too. Blair, I was the same with Blair. I mean, it just shows how good how good the propaganda can be to pull the wool over your eyes. Because I mean, I'm not the most stupid person in the world, although I am deprecating of myself, you know, idiot from the Midlands, even though I can figure out that, you know, some of the stuff that's going on at the moment. But I mean, you know, I'm not stupid, and they pulled the wool over my eyes. I mean, I wasn't watching closely. I think you have to be watching closely to spot, you know, just how opposite they are, these people, to the way they're portrayed and the way they portray themselves in the media. Because 2016 happened, and that was the wake-up call for me, Joanne, the 2016, because everybody, the media, everything, well, this is going to be a walk in the park. I thought Hillary Clinton is going to win this by double digits. There you go. Yeah, and Hillary Clinton will win. She'll be the first female president. Yay for women, brilliant. And then we can all go back to sleep. And then Trump won. And I thought, well, clearly something's broken here, because everybody and everything said that Clinton was going to win and Trump had no chance. And where are we right now, Joanne? Right now, aren't everybody saying the same thing? Biden's going to win and Trump's got no chance. And this is 4 years on. We're 2 weeks away from the election. And if you had said the same things on 2016, if you had said in 2016, 2 weeks away from the election, yeah, Trump's going to win this, they would look at you, people would look at you like your head had exploded. But it's repeating itself here. I mean, so I got off the track. So 2016 happened. You start your podcast. What have you learned since?
Oh.
Is it way worse than you thought, the state of the world?
Yeah.
There were times when I think, can I go back and take the blue pill?
Yes, I think that kind of often.
I had one of the first interviews I ever did was with the great Ben Norton. And Ben was telling me how the Saudi Arabians had overproduced oil to drive the price of petroleum down, so which would make the Venezuelan oil uncompetitive on the market. And that's what it was all about. And I was like, come on, countries wouldn't do that. It's just, I was thinking, nah, that's too evil. They wouldn't do it. No, that's exactly what they did. Now, for me, that was the big opener. It's like, oh, what? They really don't care. They will, this is war. There's no difference here between dropping bombs on Venezuela and dropping cyber weapons and sanctions, because when they shut things down, there's allegations that they shut the power station down, the hydroelectric dam, isn't there, with a cyber attack. People died. 400,000 people, they're saying, 40,000 Venezuelans, they're saying, died last year from sanctions alone.
Oh,
that was an actual report by, was it Jeffrey Sachs? And, a proper scholaristic report, 40,000 dead. And they don't mention that at all on the media, do they? It's what I've seen over the last, what's the worst that you've seen with regards to the lies over the last few years?
Oh, that is impossible to answer.
Kind of, it's insane, isn't it? Because there's been so many. Do you think the Russiagate one is up there? Because this is
for sure.
If you mention Hunter Biden right now, or Joe Biden and Ukraine, as you were talking about, they'll call you a Russia conspiracy theorist, won't they?
A couple of weeks ago, I was on the phone with an old college friend who married my college roommate and who was, friends with us at the time. And we were talking about the pandemic and such. And I had said that I was very disturbed by how it had been politicized. And he immediately jumped all over me. He's like, what are you falling for those right-wing conspiracy theories? And it shut the whole thing, boom, shut it all down. He doesn't, and this is a very intelligent person, but he's indicative of a lot of people. They just wave things away. If you stamp it with that, oh my God, that's a right-wing conspiracy theory, they just won't even consider it. They won't look into it. They won't digest any facts or anything. I didn't even try. So yeah, just to give you a little example.
Yeah, I did I think we're talking 2016, the lead up to the election, and 2015, but especially 2015, 2016, because we had the whole Brexit thing, a few months before here. That was sort of when I got my political awakening. And I remember I was an internet marketer at the time, so I was doing some marketing in political groups on Facebook and doing a lot of talking on Facebook, and sort of that's where I got my education, sort of thing, so to speak, about Bernie Sanders and the whole progressive movement in America back in 2016. And I remember one particular group, I remember, just to talk to you, just to highlight your point about how right-wing conspiracies slap, that's it, you can't talk to them, the walls are up, there's no point, you can't get through to people who are like that. I remember very similar things happening 4 years ago before I started doing this. And I remember one group on Facebook, it was a massive group called We Love Jeremy Corbyn. and it had got something like 70,000 members of, and it was really active. You know, one of those Facebook groups that just constantly, there's always somebody posting to it about how they love Jeremy Corbyn and how the Labour Party movement was fantastic and how Corbyn could do no wrong. And just to highlight your point of how people can be, you know, just put the blinkers on and just be totally one-dimensional with their way of thinking. I remember somebody posted something from somebody called Katie Hopkins. I don't know whether you know her. She's one of those right-wing antagonists.
I know the names. Yeah.
She's a troll, basically. She's just a troll. And there was something in the news about depression, and she posted something on Twitter to say, people with depression don't need a trip to the doctors and a course of antidepressants. What they need is some running shoes and an apple. And obviously she said it in a way that is antagonistic, and people in this group all, hate Katie Hopkins, or hate. And I just quoted, hold on a minute, actually, if you look at the statistics, the antidepressants are not much better than a placebo with regards to how they affect depression, and a regular course of exercise and a change in your diet has a much better effect on your mental health. So what she's saying there is actually right. She said it in a bad way, and she said it in an antagonistic way, but the level of hate I got levied at me from people in that group was insane. Joanne, I got called a rapist apologist.
Oh my God.
He said, you're a rape apologist. I bet you're a rape apologist. It was insane. I had like 50 proper, you know, people with, we love Jeremy Corbyn, 20-year-olds with pink hair and what have you, all saying that I was a rape apologist, and I ended up getting ejected from the group. Me. I didn't say anything nasty to them at all. I was trying to educate them. No, actually, exercise is much better for you, in my opinion, from my personal experience. And the statistics say exercise is better than antidepressants. So she's right there. But because I was saying something and backing up something correct that somebody they didn't like had said, I was the one who got all the hate. So I know exactly what you mean. And it was back then that I realized, oh, we're broken. We're totally broken. Well, I need to figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And I started this literally a few months later.
Yeah. That is the kind of hate, an irrational mob hate, a coercion.
It's everywhere right now, isn't it?
Conformist. I quit. I took a hiatus from Twitter for that reason. I post links to the podcast episodes, but I've stayed away from it. I'm much less informed too, but the hate was overwhelming, I thought.
I wrote myself a message the other night before I went to bed saying, stop replying on Twitter. It's bad. Because it's sending.
Go in, get what you need, and get out. Yeah. But it was, you know what it was? It was, it's my own side, if you will. When Trump, when they said, you know, it was announced that Trump had COVID and the people around him had COVID, and then there was about a week or two of just like every day there was the response to that, you know, just wishing for people to die, and just some of the most horrible things I've ever seen. It was ironic. And I was saying, like, I don't know, I'm constantly have this uncomfortable feeling of, I feel like I'm put in the position of having to defend people who I don't want to defend, things like that. But it's the people in my own, roughly allies that are doing it. And I've just been, over time, I've been slowly pushed away from the left, if you will. I don't even believe in the labels anymore. I think they're bull, and they're manipulating so much.
Me too. I believe that this is a paradigm that they have created in order to keep us divided. You know, this whole left-right divide, it's a paradigm that doesn't really exist. It really doesn't. For a start, people say, oh, he's far right. Really? What's far right? Far right is Nazism. Wrong. Wrong. Far right is neoliberalism. You know, Nazi authoritarianism is Nazi. Far right is, you know, and people think, oh, the opposite of it's the opposite of communism. No, again, you're wrong. You know that we have been brainwashed, really brainwashed into thinking that this left-right thing exists. No, it doesn't.
No.
But the person, if you want to listen to somebody who's really right on this left-right thing, Chris Rock. That's who's right on it. He says, what am I? Am I a liberal or conservative? Well, it depends. It depends on the subject. If it's crime, I'm conservative. If it's prostitution, I'm liberal. You know,
Who was that again?
look at the issues.
Who did you mention again as the best?
It's a joke. You know.
Okay.
That's who's actually right on this left-right thing. You know,
yeah.
this whole left-right, it's there to divide us. That's what it is. Because right now, what I see, especially in America, Joanne, you tell me, is people just arguing on a daily basis over the littlest of things. And meanwhile, the big things don't get talked about. So you'll get vigorous. It's like, you know, the Overton window, didn't it? You get vigorous discussion. It's what Chomsky says. Vigorous discussion within accepted levels of power of talk. You know, we'll talk about whether we can drop, we can have 8,000 troops in Syria, or whether we should have 6,000 troops in Syria. We can't have a talk of whether we should be in Syria at all. That would be nuts. What are you, a Syrian apologist, Assad apologist, Assad toady? What's the matter with you? And this is the way it just goes on and on and on and on. And unless you're paying really daily attention to it, like you and I do, you can't make head nor sense of it, can you? You'll get brainwashed.
And the funniest thing is when, once in a while, you'll see this sort of like man on the street, and they'll ask people a basic question, and they're vigorous supporters of, I don't know, you saw it a lot with Hillary supporters. Yeah. And then they just ask them like a basic question about her policies or other things, and they're like, and you realize that they have there's no foundation. There's nothing under there. They just don't know. Yeah, it's very sad. And I think what started me on that path was when the term progressive, I watched that whole thing develop. It started in early to mid 2000s,
right,
on those political blogging platforms, who were at war with the media at that point, because the media was demeaning them. They were a little bit of competition there, and that whole thing evolved over a decade. But anyway, it was a group of people who didn't want to be like the establishment Democrats, so they sort of created this whole, and they labeled it as progressive, though it didn't exactly align with the progressives from the past a century before. But it became something that people could grab onto to form sort of a new identity, the more rebel Democrats, that kind of thing. And they talked about crashing the gate, and the DLC, the Democratic Leadership Council or whatever, who was generally the Clinton wing of the party, and they were trying to take over the party, and there was a lot of good stuff, like really good stuff. But and then they started to prove that the smaller donors could make a difference, because with the internet and with Act Blue, small donations started to become significant with good organizing. And then the party had to pay. It's been a battle. There's a civil war in the Democratic Party still going on. But anyway, the progressives were this,
The civil war in the Democratic Party is the democratic hierarchy trying to desperately to make the Democratic Party less democratic. It's the same over here with the Labour Party. The whole point of the Labour Party was more democracy. This was Tony Benn's dream, more democracy. And the more you look into it, the more the members, they haven't got a say in anything really that goes on in the party. And it's the same over there with the Democrats, isn't it?
Yeah. It is what we used to call kabuki theater. It is all the things they say are bull.
I call it professional wrestling. It's two sides pretending they're fighting when really it doesn't matter. It's just a show. They don't care who wins really.
Yeah. And it's gotten to the point where, as you mentioned earlier, during your awakening, when what you were being told was almost the exact opposite of what was true. That happens so much now that you can almost use it as as an analysis tool.
It's stupid, honestly. I've got on my TV up here. I've got.
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
I've got channel. I've got channels. I've got a news tab on my. I've programmed my TV, so I can go literally from Fox to CNN to MSNBC.
Yeah.
Down. And in the morning, I'll spend like an hour listening to what they're saying. 20 minutes on each one.
Read the chyrons. Yeah.
If you can do this, do it, because you will be amazed. You will watch an hour of news, 20 minutes from 3 different channels, and they'll all be talking about different news. It's weird. It's like that. It's the same news. They'll all have the same news, but it will all be from a different angle. It's like, well, which one of these is the truth? Because all I'm seeing here is spin. That's it. Nobody's telling the truth at all. It's all, it's almost like damage control as to, you know, we've got to spin this in a way that's going to make the DNC look as innocuous as possible. It's happening right now with the Hunter Biden thing. I turned on Fox this morning and all they were talking about was Hunter Biden, his corruption, this Ukraine thing. You turn on to CNN, all they're talking about is the same, but oh no, it's nothing. It's nothing. It's not corrupt at all.
Yeah.
And it's actually Donald Trump is a puppet of Vladimir Putin. And you sit there and you think, well, if he's a puppet of Vladimir Putin, why is it Elizabeth Warren and all the Democrats voted to give him an extra $100 billion?
It's crazy.
You know, this is insane. A 4-year-old could destroy these arguments, but they keep doing it every day. It's the same, and it carries on and on and on. We're 4 years on from 2016, and it's worse, not better. Can you believe it?
It is, yeah. And just to get back to your original question that I never did answer was
probably because I talked over you.
No, it's because we always, every time we talk, we could talk for like all day, I think.
Really could.
So, but the both Dan and I.
Now, haven't you? Sorry, Joanne, carry on.
Both Dan and we were not bought in. We were both Bernie supporters, and we followed that whole story in real time and closely. We watched Russiagate, emerge, and we watched it all happen from the start. And we also were both, I guess, honest enough with ourselves to what we were seeing was just not measuring up with like the, is Hillary Clinton going to win everything thing. I mean, I was seeing the Trump sign, the lawn signs were a huge indicator.
Sorry to jump in there, but this is something I was talking to my girlfriend this morning about. And I said to her, because she wants Biden to win. And you don't want to know why. She's a radical lefty. And she says, if Biden wins, then the Trump supporters will burn the whole country down. That's why she wants Biden to win, because she just wants an end to the whole thing.
Oh, she's not the only person. I've heard other people too. Yeah.
When I see, and I hear, I see them all these lefties on YouTube, we're going to vote Biden. Mike Figueredo at the Humanist Report did this whole Twitter thread yesterday on how I know it's not going to change anything, but I'm going to vote Biden and I don't really want to. And everybody over there who says they're going to vote Biden is the same. It's like, I'm going to vote Biden and then I'm going to shoot myself in the head. You listen to a Trump supporter, they can't wait to go and vote Trump. They are so revved up. They're going to post in as many ballots as possible. They're going to harvest as many ballots as possible. And then they're going to go and vote on the day as well. You know why? Why they're going to do that? Because Trump told them to do it. That's why. And they are so enthusiastic and can't wait. And the Biden support is dead. It's non-existent. It's blue check marks on social media trying to whip people up into a frenzy, isn't it?
I've seen 3 or 4 Biden signs. I think there are probably a lot more out there, but I live in a very blue state. This is Biden's home territory. I live in the Philadelphia metro area,
okay,
which is also called the Delaware Valley. And the Delaware Valley includes part of New Jersey, it's the Delaware River, part of New Jersey, Philadelphia, the suburbs of Philadelphia. And Delaware, the top part of Delaware is Wilmington, Delaware. That's the more urban and suburban part of the area. And then there's lower, we call it, what the nickname is, lower, slower Delaware, which is rural. There's a big military base, Dover military base, that everyone knows because they bring the casualties home there, the caskets with the flags and all that. So that is not exactly part of the Philadelphia metro area, but really it is. They all have the same media. It's the same media market and things like that. So everybody around here knows Joe Biden, and he should do best.
So if there's an area that's going to be enthusiastic, it should be there, shouldn't
I
it?
would think.
Delaware, he was the senator for Delaware. He was called Senator Credit Card because that's where all the credit card companies are enrolled.
It was called, yes. In the 80s, Wilmington became very banking oriented. Maybe it was before that too. There's a lot of pharmaceutical industry in that area too. But so, some bigger banks and credit card processing, that whole business exploded in the latter part of the last. And yeah, it's a place where, it's a lot of people register their corporations there.
Yeah. You know who registers their corporation there? You know which Progressive company registers their name there? The home of the Progressives.
What was that?
The Young Turks register in Delaware.
Yeah. I mean, lots of people.
Tax.
When I started a corporation, I tried to decide.
That's real progressive, that is, isn't it? Get away, try and pay as least tax as possible.
Oh yeah, he's a fraud.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, I went when I started a corporation, I went back and forth on whether I should, because it's so easy to set one up in Delaware.
Yeah, there's a whole town here. I'm not sure whether it was in Wales or down south, but there was a whole town that got together and tried to incorporate one big company so they could create one of these double Dutch with a slice of Irish tax sort of rebates. So you send all your profits to, basically the way it works over here is you send your profits to a company in Holland that you keep your name registered to, that, so sort of your image rights there, and then they send the money to a finance company in the Isle of Man, and then you loan the money from your own company in the Isle of Man and then claim it back as a tax rebate. And that's how the big companies over here don't pay any tax and they get away with it legally.
Yeah, the array of shell companies is crazy. It was really easy to
doing it. Why should the little companies, and why shouldn't a town? I've forgotten the name of the town now, but every shop was like, yeah, we'll sign up. And you went in there, there's a thing on the door saying, yeah, we're signed up to this, and we're going to take it to the man, stick it to the man. I mean, obviously, it's not the way to go, especially if you're going to tax, and that's the way that your economy is going to work. Then it's sort of like, tax is theft, so you say, but then you're thieving it back off them. And it's just, but if the big companies, if it works for Amazon, then the little companies are going to have to do it. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to compete.
Yeah, exactly. And there are a lot of little LLCs. Lots of people have LLCs for lots of different purposes, not just to do business with them, but they might put a house under an LLC.
Did you register it in Delaware?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's easy. I mean, you can create a company.
Did you though? For yours?
No, I didn't. In the end, I didn't. I got a lawyer and I registered the corp in New Jersey for a couple of other reasons.
Joanne.
Yeah. But it was tempting, let me tell you. It was very tempting.
Yeah, I mean, if it was tempting for you, imagine how tempting it's going to be for a large corporation with a large turnover and with all those zeros added onto the end of the how much that you would save. It's going to be really.
Yeah, I mean, everybody does. You can set up a corporation, an S corp, an LLC online.
It's a stupid way.
They'll give you an address. They'll be a registered agent for you. There are corporations there are some addresses that God only knows how many corporations have that same address because it's
that one in Holland I was talking about. It's, I mean, Facebook's got one over there, and it's literally just a brass plate on a door. There's an office in Holland that's like 3 stories high, and there are literally tens of thousands of companies registered at that office because you have to have like an address. So they just all register them at the same office building and just put a brass thing on the door, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not even getting into like the tax havens, you know, the Caribbean and of course you guys, the Jersey.
We can't talk about the tax havens. I'm from the UK, mate. There's something called the Square Mile in London, and if I mention that on my podcast, they'll tap me away.
You're done.
They really will.
Yeah, there are a couple things I'm not allowed to mention either, and I forget what I was going to tell you. Oh yeah, so Wilmington, you know, there a lot of credit card and other banking business, became bigger and bigger there, and one of them was MBNA, and so in any kind of written reference to senators and congressmen, the way they do it is it would say Biden parentheses D for Democrat and then hyphen and then the state D. That's the official way to thing. And so we switched it to Biden D MBNA, which was the name of the bigger bank. So that was the joke that was widespread at the time.
And this is the guy who they're all trying to get you excited about for this election's coming up in 2 weeks. Now, I'm assuming that whoever wins the day after your lives in America will immediately improve, correct? Because this is an election, and it's a democratic election in the freest democracy on the planet. So surely it's going to be the best democracy, and it's going to be we're going to see a clear result, aren't we? Yeah. No,
it's a uniparty. You know, they answer to someone who's not us. You know, they don't represent the people. No.
Do they want to win? Because I see Trump.
Yeah, they want to win.
And he's not winning any votes. So Trump isn't winning any votes at the moment, apart from the people who are always going to vote for him. And neither is Biden, because there's no policies there, is there?
Not any you can believe. You should really look at his history if you want to figure out what he's going to do, because pretty much everything that comes out of the guy's mouth right now is not trustworthy. He's using a lot of Trump tactics from 2016. He's trying to pull them off.
Yeah.
I could go on for a long time. I just watched his Tony Blinken, his foreign policy advisor, on talking about this stuff, and he was just basically saying and Larry Summers, they were both on CNN this morning, and you know, he's going on about I just wrote it down here. You can get a little bit I sort of learned how to listen to them now. I can pick out what I think is real and what I think isn't. But he was on CNN today talking about Biden's foreign policy. He says Biden will be tough on China, you know, because that's a total lie. Biden is heavily invested in China. But he says Biden would invest and he said he would invest at home and assert our values to counter China's strength. And he went on about how the U.S. decline has accelerated under Trump. But that decline is not inevitable. When he was asked about Afghanistan, he said, oh yeah, Biden wants to end the Afghanistan war and the forever wars, but he would do it responsibly. So this is just right back to Obama.
He had 8 years to end the Afghanistan war as vice, but it's like...
Oh, he promised. I don't know if you remember the 2016 election, but he banged the table when he did the debate with Paul Ryan. There's a clip. I could dig it up, but I don't think we're going to take time for that. But he swore up and down, I'm going to end that war, end this war in Afghanistan, and we're going to be out of there by 2014, period. And that was a lie.
He likes using that, doesn't he? Number one.
Period. Yeah.
Look, fat.
Look, Fats,
Me.
yeah. Go do some push-ups with
You
me.
don't vote for me, vote for the other Biden. You ain't black.
Yeah.
This is he's
They had to hide the guy for the whole campaign, literally.
this is not good for democracy, is it? This is,
Well,
I mean, if this is the best we can do, what are we doing it for?
You know, I think that there was a plan, and the plan didn't, got derailed in 2016. I think that they are terrified that some of the things that they did will be exposed. I think that's probably the biggest reason why Biden was shoved forward in that. I don't think Trump is any angel, but I think they are terrified that he will expose some things that they don't want exposed. I think he probably does want to end the wars that he says he's going to end. However, he
hasn't
enthusiastic about getting us into some new ones.
Yeah, he hasn't
Iran and China.
started any hot wars. That's, Obama and Biden, they took us from 2 wars to 8. Who are they, by the way, John? You got Iraq, Libya,
Yemen,
Syria, Yemen.
7 or 8 wars.
The Syria, Pakistan's one as well, isn't it?
Took us out of Iraq, but then back
Somalia?
in. It might be
Afghanistan.
Nah, we were already. He surged Afghanistan.
I can't remember whether it's 7 or I know it got up to 8. It might be back down to 7 now, but it's 7 hot wars, at least 7 hot wars. 8 if you include, the Pakistan, for instance,
Libya, Syria, Yemen.
It's 8. I think it's 8. It's either 7
Ukraine. Well, maybe they don't count Ukraine, but they should.
No, probably not, because I'm talking about hot wars. But then you got 7 or 8 hot wars. Then there's 38 countries America is sanctioning right now. 38. So 8 you're bombing, 38 the sanction. You add the billion people that you're in a trade war at the moment with China, and then you add basically the military presence that America have got in almost every country in Africa, I think it is right now. Almost every country. There's something like 90, and they've got 88 countries they've got a military presence in. If you actually look at that statistically, and you look at just on a population basis, what that means is America, with us on your coattails, are at war with 25% of the poorest of the planet's poorest people. That's the truth. For what? Resources. For resources and for hegemony, for economic hegemony over the world. And that's it. That's it. It's not to make us feel better. It's not to give us in our countries a better healthcare. No, they don't give a fuck about us. They would rather take our healthcare away right now.
What I care about more is it's not because they're any real threat to us. I mean, that's the only reason to use force, in my view.
But I mean, it's been like this for 50, 60 years. I mean, they weren't a threat. China weren't a threat 50, 60 years ago. China's economy was next to nothing 20, 30 years ago. The only way it's become the powerhouse that it's become is because we have took our eye off the ball, and we've been doing this constantly, and constantly all it seems that we care about is consuming. That's it. Consumption on a planet with limited resources. It's insane. We're going to kill ourselves if we carry on doing it. It's gonna be the end of humanity. It's gonna be soon as well if we don't change course. Because
I've never seen any evidence that empires are sustainable.
They're not.
So, why are we doing this?
They're not. But we keep doing it. They say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Well, clearly the human race is fucking insane then, aren't they, Joanne? Because we keep doing it over and over. And, you're running this experiment in 2020 at the moment. I'm reminded of the Jimmy Dore joke. If only we could run an experiment where Donald Trump goes up against a corporatist that doesn't stand for anything. I wonder what's going to happen. Everybody is saying that Biden's going to win. I don't see that that's where all the excitement is, do you?
Yeah, I hesitate to say this, but I I don't have any faith that there will be a real election.
I don't have any faith that there's going to be an election that's counted.
And I'm not just worried about the Republicans meddling. I'm actually worried more about the Democrats and
that's
the intelligence mafia that they
do you
are
think it'll
totally
go all
in
the way
league
to the
with.
Supreme Court? Because obviously you've got COVID, which is going to stop people going to the, I mean, people are going to die. People are going to go out and vote, and they're going to end up getting COVID and dying, aren't they? The same as they did in the primaries when Bernie.
I don't think that's nearly as big a threat as it is made out to be. I think that
the point is that they're going to suppress people going out. People aren't going to want to go out, so they're going to want to mail in your votes, and the early voting, etc., which is I would have thought going to benefit the Democrats hugely.
I think
but
so.
then you just don't know what the Trump and his supporters are going to do, because he's told them to vote by mail and then go and vote in person as well, hasn't he?
Did he say
I think
that?
this is going to end up in the Supreme Court.
It very well could be. It did in 2000. But I think the more important election to look at is probably the 2018 election, where there were a number of key races, enough to flip the House, where on the in-person voting on the day of, the election went one way, or it was very narrow. And then, these mail-in ballots, changed the whole thing. The Democrats ran at least 30 ex-military intelligence or ex-intelligence candidates. They, worked very hard to get the governorship of the 3 states that they're obsessed with, the swing states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, to make sure there's Democratic governor there. And that means you control the elections, because the Secretary of the State is part of the executive branch. So the ballots are getting mailed out in enormous numbers. You could always vote by mail here, but you got to go to your county clerk and request an absentee ballot. I've done it. And then you mail in your ballot. They don't just send everyone a ballot. There are like apartment complexes where the last 4 residents of all the apartments ended up with ballots. I know firsthand that people who no longer live in places, their ballots are showing up for them.
So it's going to be an absolute cluster.
And some states passed laws. I think it's at the state level. It may be because there's county level too involved. So they got some laws or rules passed where they can continue counting the votes, up to receiving and counting the votes, up to 2 weeks after the election.
How are you going to go? Are you going to be able to call a winner then on the night of the election? You're not, are you?
No. And there are all these wargaming things going on, and
just about to go on to that. There are these simulations that these think tanks are doing, and every simulation,
a red mirage.
You come back with your country on fire the day after, don't they?
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable with these people who are making predictions, but really they're treating them more like prophecies. Even at the beginning of the pandemic, I'd say in the first week, where we started to respond to that, there were people like Bill Kristol going out there and proclaiming, we're going to have a new normal. Things will never be the same again. And this was at a point in time when we had no idea where this thing was going. No one could possibly know how it was going to play out. And yet they were saying things like
that. That's somebody who is jumping on it to try and further their own ideology.
Exploitation. It's exploitation, politicization. Yeah.
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I just don't have any confidence in this election. They've tossed so many sacred cows have gone under the bus in the last 4 years. And the curtain's being pulled back. And there's just I just don't care, they don't care what they wreck.
This has got to be the way people are thinking more and more across America. I mean, even when I was there in 2008, people knew that it was a joke that I was told in 2008, whichever party you vote for, you still get the government. And I made a tweet earlier, and it's gone a little bit viral. I said, me, who are you voting for next month? American friend, the racist, rapist, liar who only cares about corporate profit. Me, you're going to have to narrow it down a bit more, my friend. You've got two lying racist rapists who only care about corporate profit, Wall Street, and the military-industrial complex, fighting over who gets to be the most powerful man on the planet with the nuclear codes. This is not a democracy. This isn't even close. It's not even a D.
The real elections are the primaries.
Yeah.
Because by the time we get to the nominations, the people who are really in power sort of make sure that there are two palatable alternatives. That's what they try to do. It didn't work out that way apparently in 2016, but
you started your podcast in 2017. How many have you done now? How many people you interviewed?
Yeah, in the end of 2016, and I'm on I think 189. I used to do once a week. Now I do a little bit more than once a week.
Okay, so you must have interviewed a lot of people who obviously are clued up and know a lot about the empire, etc. Is this, the way we're talking, is this indicative of the feeling of people at the moment? We're not out of the ordinary here. We're just people who have, looked at things objectively and, we're
seeing the light. Yeah.
And there are more people like us than there are not actually when you move away from the mainstream news kind of things.
Well, it's hard to know. I would say that I'm still maybe a little ahead of the curve. It's not a good place to be. You just get, if you're out front with a certain idea or information, you generally get browbeated for. Even a few years later, people are like, oh yeah, that was true, but they never give you any credit for it. But anyway, but here's one thing we do know: the biggest segment of voters in this country is not affiliated with any party, but they will not allow an independent, a third party to come.
What was your turnout in 2016? 56%.
I don't know.
It wasn't even 60%. So you've got 40% of people who don't even vote. That's without, only 30% then who vote are Democrats. And, you've got 60% of the people who vote aren't affiliated to anybody. So there's what, 180 million votes there that you can get. Yeah.
You have to take the kids out of it.
Are they? Neither party are trying to get any of those votes at all. There were 94 million that didn't vote in 2016, and not a single candidate is trying to get their vote with any policy whatsoever. These are people,
not with any policy, just with stunts. Like the Democrats really want to get the people who don't vote. I mean, Democrats should really win. They believe they could win every election if they could just get people to come out and vote. That it's the people who don't vote who are the problem, and we've heard that for years.
If the Democrats really were serious about getting into power, just look at Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand. I mean, you can call her a socialist, etc., but she's a proper lefty. They're a proper left party, and they've just won in an absolute landslide.
Yeah.
Now that's what can happen if you have the courage of your convictions and you're not scared to go against the corporate state. But they're not willing to do that because they're going against the very people that they're biting the very hand that feeds them, aren't they?
Yeah, it just shows you who they represent. They don't represent us. And you saw that start to snowball with Bernie Sanders, right? There were people from all parts of the political spectrum who were going to go with him. Something like, there are a few key issues that if you just satisfied those, just do healthcare. Just do that. It's like 80% of the people in this country want some kind of single payer, some kind of healthcare system that's affordable and fair. That's not a scam like Obamacare was.
I've had
Just that alone.
I've had conversations with people online about healthcare in America, and it's it's quite astounding to me as somebody who's got universal healthcare and has all his life. We've had it since 1948. Yeah, that's how long other nations have had national healthcare. And it's astounding when I'm talking to people from America and they try and tell me that my health service is shit. It's like, I remember breaking my ankle once. I didn't break it. I tore all the ligaments in my ankle. It's worse than a break. It was very painful. I was drunk and I fell down a cellar. And I went to hospital that night, and I was in hospital. I had x-rays, I had scans, etc., etc., etc. And I came out, and that was it. I didn't, the only thing I had to pay for was parking, and I bloody complained about that. And I remember doing a breakdown the once of how much that would cost me in America, and it would cost me something like $18,000. Your great liberal hope in America, Barack Obama, his excuse for giving you, I mean, you'll know this was thought of from the Heritage Fund, was it? The Obamacare?
Yeah.
I mean, Jimmy Dore calls it Romney Care because that's who really thought of it. And I'll do a really bad Barack Obama impression, but I've just got done reading one of David Graeber's books, Bullshit Jobs, and he talks about the American healthcare system, or the lack thereof. And he gives a quote from Barack Obama of why he didn't pass Medicare for all, why he gave you a right-wing healthcare plan in America. And he said, and I quote, or to the best of my ability, you see, the cost involved in the healthcare, every dollar, it represents 1 million, 2 million, 3 million jobs in the healthcare industry. And that was the excuse that he gave for not giving you cheap healthcare. So in other words, you have to pay an exorbitant amount of money for your healthcare to keep 3 million people in bullshit jobs that are not required. Just think about that. That was his excuse for giving you it. And people went, yeah, okay, sounds right. Okay, let's go and see.
Is that what he said? Yeah.
That's what he said. I'll get the exact quote. Let me pull it up.
Yeah.
I'll get the exact quote. Obama, I remember 1 million, 2 million, 3 million jobs.
Yeah, I don't even know whether I believe him on that. I mean, the real reason is that there's an enormous lobby. There's a hospital lobby. There's a pharma lobby, in the various sectors of the medical sector. And, they call the shots, and they make a lot of money off of that thing. My big takeaway from Obamacare, and what sort of was another one of the things that just took me out of the game for the Democrats, was, we knew that we couldn't get single payer. That was kabuki. All the co-signers of single payer and all that, it became clear to us that fighting for that was just useless, because it was fake. It wasn't real support, because when they actually had the power to do it, they made every excuse in the world and just dodged and never brought that bill to the floor.
Shouldn't have called it single payer.
Yeah, it was pretty stupid.
Call it universal healthcare. Should have called it universal. Single payer just makes your average American go, what? I'm paying for everybody's healthcare?
Yeah. And that may have been deliberate too, not to give it an appealing name.
That makes me worry, because they're so good at framing it when they want to go the other way.
Yeah, and their whole life is about pretending to be something they're not, right? They have to do that all the time. So
sorry, carry on.
So the big thing we fought over, and this is what turned me against Obama after having been one. So we thought, all right, the public option, we're going to go for the public option. That'll be part of Obamacare, because we know we can't get universal single payer health care. So we worked on that, fought all kinds of battles for it. Organizations were formed, tons of research and arguments were made, and all kinds of resources were spent on that. and they strung us along. And at the very last minute, they ditched the public option with a promise from Harry Reid, who was pretending to support it. He says, look, we just got to pass, because we became part of the kill the bill movement. We wanted to ditch the whole thing unless we could get something that was salvageable out of it. And the kill the bill movement was big enough that Harry Reid had to create this lie, promise that he would bring up the public option. We're going to pass it. We know it's not perfect, but as soon as we pass it, we're going to start, working on improving it immediately. And I promised to bring the public option up for a vote. We couldn't even get it to the floor for a vote.
Yeah, how many times has it been, have the Republicans tried to repeal it?
Yeah, well,
60?
Yeah, I don't know how many times.
While they've been trying to repeal it, actively trying to repeal it, they're doing it now. How many bills have the Democrats bought to bring the public option?
None, never. And we found out later, it leaked, that the public option was taken off the table from the start, that Obama made like almost a contract with the hospital industry that he would just never do that. So he lied all through that whole thing and dangled this carrot, the public option carrot. And so that was it for me. I was, okay, I'm done with you.
So sorry, if you don't mind, can you ask you a little bit about your health and the personal, because you've mentioned to me a couple of times that you're not, well, you tell me.
Yeah, in the morning.
I've never asked you about it. I'm just wondering how that plays in, like, with the state of healthcare in America.
Yeah, so I don't talk about it that much, but
I mean, you don't have
I have some chronic
personal question, but
well, I mean, it's okay. I have some chronic health conditions that I'm basically in so much pain in the morning. It takes me until I can get moving, walking around, have my caffeine. It's more like arthritic pain. I had Lyme disease that I had for, I think, about a decade. I don't really even know.
And you get that from ticks?
Get it from ticks, deer ticks, these tiny little deer ticks. At some points in time, they're so tiny, you can't even notice them, or maybe they're on your back or something like that. And, usually they're a little bit bigger ticks. I think they're actually on like field mice or something.
Okay.
And then somehow they get to deer, and then they'll jump on. They're opportunistic, of course. So
you were fine health-wise until you had Lyme disease.
Pretty much.
And when was it you got this tick and this?
It was in the early 2000s when my health started to decline.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like a superwoman before that. I mean, it was.
You still
never in perfect shape, but
You still are, as far as
I would, I really was. Yeah, I could.
And this obviously is not the wind out of you. I mean, this is chronic pain. Is it like joint pain and whatever it gives you?
Yeah, it's joint pain. I also have like a back injury, my lower back, so I've got that constantly. But
have they got you on medication? Have they, or?
Yeah, but I don't even like it, so I've cut it down to in half. I have like 3 different maintenance medicines for different things, thyroid and stuff like that. And also, I guess it's okay to say, I've also brought CBD into my regimen, and it's like a freaking miracle drug for arthritic pain. Yeah.
Well, actually, you probably saw me moving like that earlier.
Oh, the ointment.
I was rubbing some CBD oil on because I've got that finger and that finger, those 2 fingers. I've got arthritis in.
Yeah.
And but I've started using this. You can see there's only a little bit left, and I can play my guitar again.
It doesn't really do much for the back pain, which is an injury.
No, yeah, but it doesn't.
But
do
the arthritic pain, it's like
the arthritis. It's really loosened up my joints. Have you?
Oh yeah, I am a convert.
Are you taking it like because this is stuff that rubbing on my skin? Have you take like tincture? Do you?
I don't have a tincture, though. I've had it. No, I have the actual plant.
Okay.
It's a strain that was uh, what do you call it when you develop strains? It's a hybrid
Tina?
that they created it for. It has almost no THC in it. It's like
Okay, so
all,
it's a hybrid then. So
yeah,
they've created this CBD strain that's got
yeah,
no THC in. For me, why would you take the fun bit out?
yeah. Well, I mean that's great for other, but it's not for me. I don't. I'm one of those
It's not
people
for
that
everyone. I get it. It's not for
I'm
everybody.
very sensitive to it.
Yeah.
I never built up a tolerance like they said I would, and I just don't. I don't like the way
If you,
it makes me feel uncomfortable.
yeah, I
Uh,
mean, for me, it's for my depression. Yeah, I've suffered with depression all my life, and I don't have it when I've got weed. Simple as
I
that.
know you're far from the only person who tells me that, and I some people can work really well. For me, it would just derail me. I can't think. I become
Oh,
much
I'm stoned right
slower.
now, John. I keep telling people don't believe me. Yeah, I'm stoned. When I do these, I'm all the time. You know, if it's a day with a Y in, you can guarantee I'm going to be high.
Yeah, I know there are. It was hard for me to believe, but I've seen it so many times now that I think it just affects people in different ways altogether. But I do know that the CBD is like a miracle drug for
So yeah,
arthritic
what's
pain.
what are like the apart from the pain, what else is you know, and obviously how was your healthcare system, you know, because I can tell you how we would be treated for Lyme disease over here. We would go to
Yeah,
the hospital, and the hospital would send you to a specialist, and the specialist would do this, that, and the other, and they would put you on a course, etc., and it all would be free at the point of sale,
yeah,
free at the point of service, rather. Now, I'm assuming this cost you a fortune.
yeah. So this is a bit of a rabbit hole, so I'll just stay near the top of it.
You can go deep into it if you want, Joanne.
Well, there's a panel of doctors in Connecticut who basically control all the policies and protocols and things like that. They also have a financial interest in the tests, at least one of the tests. And they were in the process of developing a vaccine that I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know it didn't go well. The protocol is that Lyme is a disease that's easy to diagnose and easy to treat.
Mm-hmm.
That the tests are good, and that a couple weeks or a month of particular antibiotics and it'll be gone. But that's simply not the case. There are cases that have become further along, and certain people whose reaction to this Lyme infection who can't get rid of it easily. The tests are highly unreliable. I know that they have created some new ones since then that I
Mm-hmm.
don't know a lot about because I don't need to at the moment. And there are a lot of false negatives. Then there's another test. It's called a Western blot test where there are a certain number of bands. It's not just a yes or no. It's like you're positive for this band, that band. There's something like, I forget how many bands. And you have to be positive in a certain number of bands before you officially have Lyme disease.
Okay.
In different countries, the standards are different. I was at the point where I had enough bands positive that, like in Germany, I would have been considered positive, but here I wasn't. Um, so anyway, I had this back and forth with my doctor because I had all the symptoms, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. And there
So
are a number of,
are you insured at this time?
yeah, I was insured
Obviously, in the
through,
2000s.
I was insured through all of that. But it
And it
got to
was
the
your
point,
doctor that was the problem, not the insurance.
my, that was, at first it was my doctor. Um, and at the end, my partner was saying, you have, all the symptoms. And he was just watching me deteriorate. I couldn't work anymore.
Mm.
It was all I could do to take care of my kids. And anyway, I'll skip forward. We found out that we found some people through online communities that there was a whole online community of people with something they called chronic Lyme,
Right.
and just people who were having trouble, dealing with the disease. And we found out that there were doctors who specialized in it. maybe unofficially or whatever. But they were being hassled by authorities, medical boards and things like that, which is kind of inexplicable for me. Basically because you had to use a longer course of antibiotics to really get rid of it. And even an intravenous regimen like this, this PICC line in your arm and twice a day drip, all that. And the medical boards were hassling them, actually going after them, taking their licenses and things. So it was almost like a slightly underground kind of thing. So anyway, we found this doctor. It so happens that in southeastern Pennsylvania is a hotspot for Lyme. There's just a lot of people who were suffering with it, and there were a few doctors. Some of them who had Lyme.
Is it like a boggy, wet habitat? Is it
Not really. No, just a lot of deer.
Yeah, it tends to be like a jungly sort of overgrowth. That's where you generally find them. At least that's the case over here.
Yeah, there's just a lot of, you've seen the Google Earth pictures. There's forests as far as the wood. It's a woodsy area. If you leave something for long enough, all the trees and the vines and everything will take over.
Yeah.
It's heavily developed too, right? But there are a lot of woods, and I don't know, maybe it's the climate too that.
So how long did it take you to get diagnosed with it then?
I was probably getting tested for about 7 years.
Jeez.
But I suspect I had it for more than a decade. I think I was tested 3 or 4 times over, and they all came back negative, and it came down to like a fight with my primary doctor, who basically said to me at the end, he said, look, you don't have Lyme disease. I know Lyme disease and you don't have it. He got like aggressive with me, and I was like, yeah, okay, I think I'm done with this guy. I should have left there much longer. Yeah. He just went by the books. He went by the books, and he thought he knew what he was doing. I went to this other doctor because my partner, and I was becoming less and less able to even advocate for myself. Even to move, because it also has neurological, your brain fog is just so awful. Mm-hmm. It's impossible to stay organized, things like that. So anyway, we went to the specialist, and he clinically diagnosed me. He's like, you have all the symptoms. And he sort of sat down and explained to us the problems with the testing, the antibody testing for these antibodies. And you can actually get to the point where you're so sick. He said, I'm going to start treating you. And I suspect that within 4 to 6 weeks, we'll test you again, and the test will come back positive, because I'm not even quite sure. I guess like you'll have enough antibodies in your system at that point to.
Yeah. Is that what happened?
That's what happened. And I remember saying to John, I was like, I don't know about this guy. I had my doubts, and he's like, look, let's just give him a chance. What else are we going to do? So anyway, he started treating me. That was the beginning of my treatment journey, but all of that is not covered by insurance. The insurance protocol is that you get a month. They paid for 1 month of treatment, and I needed on and off 3 years of it. And it was enormously expensive.
That comes out of your back pocket then.
Yeah. And then I actually had to apply for.
You were paying, you had insurance as well.
I had insurance at the beginning of it. And then I couldn't afford but it was Cobra, because it was from, a company that I had worked for before that. Eventually I had to apply for the government Medicaid insurance, which at a certain salary, if you're under a certain salary, you can get that.
Yeah.
And Obamacare did help me in that sense. It raised the threshold of how much money you could make and be eligible. So,
but it's not exactly free at the point of service, is it?
If you have, not always, Medicare is not like as good as some people. You still have to pay a lot out of pocket for certain things with Medicare, but Medicaid is for poor people and pays for a lot of things. But certain things you just can't have. Certain doctors don't take it. Things like that. So you are limited. There are many times where they'll force you to take a lower leverage treatment, and then maybe a second one. Oh, well, you have to try a cheaper treatment, and you have to try like 3 things before they'll approve you know,
We haven't
the
got
thing that
that.
you want.
We don't have that over here. For instance, you know, if you're low paid and you're out of work and you have to pick up some medication from the sort of, you go to the doctor's, doctor says you need to be on this medication. He'll give you a prescription. You take that to the pharmacy, and the pharmacy give you it, and they say that will be, I think it's about £8.60 at the moment. Let me just have a look. UK, it's a one size fits all UK prescription charge.
Wow. So less than $20, right?
It's
Like
less than
$15.
£10. I know that.
Oh,
It
10. Okay.
is £9.15 at the moment, so it's about $15, $14,
Like a copay.
and that's how much you pay to get. It doesn't matter whether it's $3,000 worth of medication you're getting. It's £9.15. That's what the cost is. And if you're low paid and you can't pay that and you haven't got £9, they'll say turn it over, put your national insurance number, which is sort of like your social security number, and sign it, and then you don't have to give us any. And that's it. That's it.
That's unheard of. Yeah.
And that's how much it costs. And if you can't afford that £9.15, you don't have to pay it. You just have to sign it and say, this is my national insurance company. And then eventually they'll get that prescription and just make sure that, you know, you're not ripping them off for loads of prescription charges. And that's it. And the reason we can do that is because everybody who can afford it pays in a little bit. And that's it. That's it. I tried to explain this to Americans when I was over there, and they look at me like I've got two heads. That's socialism. We don't want no socialism over here. Well, okay, you carry on having 45,000 of you die every year for no reason then.
And there are so many things that are crazy too. Like I live in a hospital, to lots of doctors in this town because there's a big hospital here, has been for a long time, but they actually tore down one of the houses. They built a bigger hospital. And this hospital I've been in it once. It's like a 5-star hotel. The room is gigantic. You have carpeted hallways, room service. You basically, all your meals, you just, order them when you want them from a menu. You have this big screen TV and, all this remote and all these sort of little services. And I thought, well, yeah, this is great, but you could fit 3 people in this room, and I don't need all these things. I'd rather have 3 people be able to go to the hospital than have this. So it's even crazy. It's even crazy. You walk into this place, it's ostentatious in its size. And I don't know. I think you get what I mean. But
I know what you mean.
It's even worse. But very often, there are just certain medications that are out of my reach.
It shouldn't be.
They're not on the list of things that you can have. Even more often, you'll take the prescription, and the doctors usually don't really know which ones are going to be covered or not. So it becomes all this back and forth for a while. But here's what happens a lot. You are prescribed something, you go to the pharmacy, or they transmit it to the pharmacy, and they come back with a message called, I just forgot it. Basically, requires more prior authorization.
Okay.
Like that. And so what that means is that the doctor has to contact the insurance company and explain why they want you to have this medicine.
Okay.
And it may or may not work.
The doctor, the professional who's prescribing you things that in his professional opinion is going to make the health of his patient, you, better, he then has to explain his professional stuff to a pen pusher who's looking at the cost.
Exactly. It's a deterrent. They know that, some percentage of people won't go through that. And there are other things like once you're in one of these government programs that, most white collar workers they may have sympathy for, but they've never actually experienced it. I actually went through a period in time when Christie was governor of New Jersey. And I live near a town, Camden, that's very poor. And that's that's the county seat. So that's where I would go to arrange, to fix any problems with, administrative problems with the bureaucracy. And when you go there, it's a large room with, rows and rows of seats, and you might have to wait a long time, but you can generally get things done. They actually removed the seats from that room at one point in time, and they cut down the phone system so that you could not, I am not exaggerating at all. And I did talk to someone in the back office at one point, and I said, I'm partly disabled. I can't stand for 3 hours to do this. I said, why did they do this? And why did they cut down the phone system so much? And she admitted to me that it was an effort to just get fewer people, to make it so hard to use that fewer people would use it. And they wouldn't be, they send you something every year to certify things like that. And they're really just kind of hoping that you'll miss the deadline, or you won't be able to go stand there for 3 hours because you can't work out something on the phone. This literally happened to me.
Sounds like universal credit over here.
This actually happened to me. I experienced this myself. I don't know if I would have believed it had I not.
Yeah, I totally believe you.
It's the same with applying for disability.
So which of these candidates at the moment that you've got are going to give you a better standard of healthcare then? So I assume one of them will, Joanne. I mean, surely one of them will, isn't healthcare on the ballot?
You know the answer. No,
it's
Joe
not.
has sworn against Medicare for all. In fact, he has said that he would veto it if
it came across his desk.
Yeah,
he would veto.
So he's bought into Obamacare too. So most likely we're going to have that. Trump, I don't know if he ever would be able to take down Obamacare. He doesn't have any plan himself other than just make it fully open and privatized, in which case they would like to have states be able to choose what rules and regulations they go by. Right now, states still have some kind of authority, and some, like my state, is better than some other ones. Mm-hmm. But they want, like insurance companies in New Jersey to be able to go by the rules of Wyoming or something, where they that's what the Republican establishment would like to do. Which
it's so stupid, because rather than that, you've got a problem, and there's a quick solution that every other country in the world does, apart from, I think, you and Malaysia. Is it Malaysia? No, Malaysia's got healthcare. Malaysia's got universal healthcare. Not. It's America and one other country. Is it Papua New Guinea? I think it's Papua New Guinea. I think those are the two. Anyway. Yeah, I know. It sounds stupid.
It is insane. There are a lot of things.
I had arguments with Americans who argue that their way is better. It's honestly,
well, we're conditioned.
We're so much and conditioned to believing that your way is the best way, and every other country in the world has got it wrong.
Well, we are told that Canadians and British are unhappy with their system, that they can't get appointments, that they have to wait for weeks or months or whatever to get.
Yeah, that's true. If I want to see my doctor, I can see my doctor tomorrow. If I want to make an appointment with my doctor and it is not an emergency, sure, he's going to give me 2 weeks down the road, as it should be. But if I ring up tomorrow morning and say, Doc, I've got a headache, I might have a brain aneurysm, they'll say, yeah, come down and see us. We'll fit you in at 2:20. That's the way it works. It's not what these talking heads on TV say it is.
No, of course it's not. No. And let me tell you something else. Specialists here, so especially certain kinds of specialists, it is common that if you get a referral for a specialist, to have to wait a number of months for an appointment. 2 months, 3 months.
And if you've got a disease,
even more,
you could be dead by the time that appointment comes around.
I mean, I think there are ways to pull strings together, but that is not uncommon. So not only are they lying, it's a big lie. The power of the medical establishment and the lobbies is enormous. I never knew how enormous it was. So,
You mentioned Christie earlier, my favourite.
oh
Chris
God,
Christie,
yeah.
because obviously I've got a British audience, so they probably don't know who he is. He was the governor of New
New
Jersey, I
Jersey.
think it was, wasn't he? And you might remember my British listeners might remember a couple of years ago there was a government shutdown. You remember they do this every year or so. They say, "Oh, you got to raise the deficit. Oh no, we can't raise the deficit. We're going to shut it down," and they
The
shut down the
financial
government.
cliff.
And
Yeah.
so all the beaches were shut down, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
he went
Yeah.
and sat on he shut his own beach down. He shut it down, and then went and sat on it, just him and his family, when there was nobody there.
And a local news organization went by in a plane and got pictures
Cool.
of it.
Just there with his, he's a big fat guy, just disgusting man.
Very large
With
man.
his
Yeah.
big white calves out. I said, "Oh God, you opulent."
And that's the state. That's a state-owned house, beach house too. It's in the middle of
That's right. Yeah, it was
a protected land in the middle of a
house
park.
or something like that.
Yeah, it's not a very big, not a big luxury house or anything, but I mean, real estate on the Jersey Shore, we have really nice beaches, and it's very expensive. So, yeah, I mean, who could be that dumb, right? I mean, who could? Yeah.
Is
But
there anything you want to talk about while you're here, Joanne? Because I could talk to you all day, and
no, I really got to
like
go.
2.5 hours already, and my dog's like,
I know I could have, and yeah. So we'll do it
honestly,
again. And we'll
yeah,
come
absolutely. Please,
on mine, or I'll come there. We'll continue the discussion.
yeah, and hopefully next time, it'll be a little bit, we'll be smiling more, and we'll be like, wow, there's hope. Look, because at the moment, yeah, we're 2 weeks out from an election that it really is just, it pays your money, you get your choice. I mean, like I say, which lying racist rapist would you like to be the leader of the free world? Here we go.
Yeah, my big decision is whether to vote or not, whether to not participate in this thing.
If I were you,
I have always voted, and my conscience is. So I actually, in talking to a friend last night, I may have a new plan. Instead of voting, I may go and be a poll watcher.
Okay, perfect.
That kind of thing.
To anybody over there, I will say vote. But even if it's to go in and say nobody above is fit for office. Even if you go and spoil your ballot, they still count spoiled ballots over there. They do over here, I suppose. So make it heard. But there's no way I would vote for either Democrat or Republican. You're being a willing participant in, like you say, kabuki theatre. Caitlin Johnston, who's my favorite writer, she says, it's the equivalent. Once you're aware of what's going on, when you're unaware, it's like you're going into a puppet show and watching a puppet show and watching Punch and Judy and being mildly entertaining. Oh, yeah. It's the equivalent of doing that. And then once your eyes are open, somebody coming up to you in the middle of the street and doing that to you and pretending people are talking to each other, you can see straight through it. And this is where we are right now. And your eyes are wide open to it, I can see. And you're opening other people's eyes as well with your great podcast. It is fantastic. You've got some brilliant people on there. I hope that the quality of my guests is going to be half as good as yours. Because if it is, then I don't think I'll be going far wrong.
Yeah. And there are so many people who are willing to speak and who want to. Because these dumbasses are just, they're just not giving a voice to tons of people who have something to say.
Not only that, they're also, I think, belittling their audience's intelligence, thinking that people can't, if you watch something like Keeping Up with the Kardashians or anything like that, the picture, the video frame, it switches camera angle every 4 seconds. You won't go more than 4 seconds watching any reality TV show where the camera is in one place. And the reason is because they think if the camera stops in one place, the audience will get bored. Really? I don't know. I'm not seeing that because my podcasts are 2.5 hours long and people are watching for the full 2.5 hours. So if
Yeah.
I can, and you can hold people's attention, I mean, you're obviously way more entertaining than me, but if we can hold people's attention for 2 hours, then surely, you know, we can do it on the TV for more than 4 seconds without having to change camera angles, because what you're actually filming is a load of crap that nobody really would be interested in if you weren't holding their attention by changing the pretty pictures every time.
Yeah, just stunts.
So I'm hoping that, you know, this long form podcast is going to be, you know, the future, but you never can tell.
And there's a lot of podcasters who are starting to coordinate. Like I have some friends at Libertarian Institute. We do swap casts.
Right.
That's something, you know, you and I could do it too, or you could do
Absolutely.
it with another
I mean,
podcast.
one of
You
the
share a guest basically, and then you broadcast it on both podcasts.
Absolutely.
Things like that.
That would be great, because you can, you know, obviously libertarians as well, you can, and conservatives, you can sit down and have a talk with them rather than just throwing insults at each other, which is all that's all that people do on social media anymore. You know, you're literally talking at people, which is not the way to go.
Now I'm all about common ground now. I'm looking for common ground. And
too.
I wish we'd do like a common ground party or something. Just keep it simple, you know. But yeah, that's where I'm at now.
Okay. Well, I don't know about you, Joanne, but I'm pretty hopeful, strangely enough, for the future. I am.
What other choice do we have?
Well, I feel as if it's always darkest before the dawn, and it's pretty dark right now.
Yeah.
So I know this has been one of those podcasts where people listening will probably get really depressed and think like there's no hope, but there is hope. There's always hope. John Leon.
There's always hopes. And sometimes when things just, it looks like, you know, it's just everything stacked up. Sometimes something can happen that's just changes everything. I think change is usually slow and takes patience and is difficult.
And then it happens all.
But not all change. Yeah.
Let's hope it's around the corner. Joanne Leon, Around the Empire podcast. Go watch it. I'll leave a link in the description. Thanks very much for your time. And
thanks so much, Gordon. Great talking to you.
You're going to be back. You're going to be a regular, I'm sure.
Okay.
Thanks, Joanne.